Every client that comes to you has like a story that they need to tell on their website. And you need to make sure that visitors understand that story and you're able to give them the value that they're looking for.
Hello and welcome to the Jumpstart podcast with Jeffalytics. I'm your host, Jeff Sauer. Today, for our 40th episode, we'll talk with Ayat Shukairy, co-founder of Invesp, serial entrepreneur, and somebody who literally wrote the book on conversion rate optimization. Now, I was introduced to Ayat from a podcast listener who had actually heard my interview with Talia Wolf in episode 38, and the listener suggested that I connect with Ayat as well, and I'm sure glad we did. Ayat joined me from Istanbul while I was on the line recording from Thailand. Now it's coming to you wherever you're listening from. This continues to be one of my favorite things about the podcast format. Now, I've been on the road for well over a year now, and podcasts are actually one of the most consistent things that I have in my life. They keep me connected with the world, pop culture back in the US, and they keep me inspired when I listen to business podcasts. For example, my recent routine has involved biking up the Doi Suthep mountain and listening to this podcast called Marketing in Your Car from Russell Brunson. His podcast is giving me tons of valuable ideas about how to best structure my agency course launch when I put it live in March, really putting myself in the mind of potential users and making sure that I'm hitting on all the marks. So it's been really valuable for me. And I'm hoping that the Jumpstart podcast is becoming a valuable part of your routine as well. And if it is, please do leave a review in iTunes or whatever podcasting application you use, because that's how people do find out about this podcast. Back to Ayat. How does an English teacher get into SEO? How does an SEO get into CRO? How many acronyms can I fit into one breath? You're going to find all these answers and more as we talk with Ayat. Listen on to learn about how Ayat was able to drum up interest in her agency through speaking, word of mouth, and writing books. Even how to deal with the uncertainty of starting a business and having both husband and wife being the people working on the business. And then learn about how Ayat developed a methodology to help clients and how this has resulted in conversion rate increases of over 65% for her customers. And then hear our prognosis for where the fascinating world of conversion rate optimization may be heading in the future. It was a real treat to talk with Ayat and to listen to an entrepreneur who never stops striving to get better at her craft. There's a lot to learn for all of us. So let's get into the interview with Ayat Shukairy. Visit jeffalytics.com/Ayat for show notes. Okay, so we're here today with Ayat Shukairy. Ayat, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. And I want to hear about your journey into entrepreneurship. And so let's start with the question that we ask everybody to start out with. And that is, what got you interested in this world, whether you call it conversion optimization or marketing? What was there a project that you worked on, a client? What got you excited about this industry?
Actually, my story is a little bit unusual because marketing or conversion optimization wasn't really the path that I had imagined I would take. I actually was an English major at university, and I went to university thinking I wanted to be an educator. That was kind of my passion. I loved children, and that was something I really wanted to focus my life on. And that's actually what I did. I went to university and did my English major and then studied education and taught actually for a couple of years, which was a really great experience. And I really loved that part of my life as well. But then things changed, I got married and I moved. So I started reading online a lot about something called search engine optimization and, optimizing content. So, you can get more visitors to your website and all of this. So that was something that really interested me. And it was something that I could do at home. And I was actually, at that time also thinking about starting a family. So I'm like, you know what, I could do this at home and not have to necessarily work outside. And then I could still pursue, starting a family and all of this. And so that's exactly what I started doing. And I started actually freelancing for a lot of different companies, helping them optimize their content. Obviously, my English major background was very helpful in that. It helped me, and I just learned a lot and researched a lot, read a lot of different blogs, and started understanding a little bit more about this fairly new industry. I mean, this is back in 2005. So it was fairly starting out, and everybody was, kind of talking about it. There was lots of buzz, and I was, it was very exciting at that time. And I started also learning more about conversion optimization at the time. I mean, it was also just beginning in that period of time. So a lot of the work that I was doing was leading to, conversion optimization. And so I started feeling like there was lots of opportunity there to do more for these clients because, once the visitor gets on the website, it's not about just optimizing the content. You want to make sure that you have kind of like this path to conversion, that you're leading them to that, final goal. So we started doing a lot more reading about kind of the psychology behind the visitor and what gets them, motivated and so on. And my husband at the time was a software engineer, and he was working on some also fairly large projects, just sometimes like building different websites. So one of the websites that he worked on actually was Motorola's website. And so when they rolled it out, he was shocked that, for example, it was like this like $1 million project. And then, they turned the switch on for the new website, and literally they had like very little conversions. I think it was like 0 conversions for like, the first like 24 hours, which was, they had like an influx of visitors and so much going on, but there was something that was breaking down that process for the visitor to actually, convert. So we started talking about, okay, there's obviously something there where a lot of companies are dealing with this issue where they are getting the traffic, but they're not able to actually convert the traffic into paying, customers and visitors. So that's how it kind of came about. And then we decided to, kind of start the business together, which is also like a whole other dynamic being in your husband's your business partner. And what we thought was going to be kind of like a smaller thing just really like grew a lot more, and it became something that, he ended up obviously leaving his job and his career for, and it's all history from there.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's funny. I know exactly what you were going through at that time, reading about SEO, wanting to change, basically wanting a career change, but not really knowing where to get started and how it all worked. So reading as much as you can and then just trying things out. That was sort of a fun time. I was doing the exact same thing, just sitting there reading everything I could and then trying to implement it and see where it goes. It was sort of a fun time to be around back in the early to mid 2000s around content. I'm curious, how did you get clients? Was there a freelancer marketplace or anything that you could use to find people?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially it was more like freelancing and word of mouth. That's how I was able to initially get clients. When we actually started and launched the company and, just basically like our website, was more optimized and we were able to get kind of traffic, that's when we were able to get more visitors coming. But initially it was just like really more word of mouth, more trying to find different people that locally we knew to, do different projects with in order to kind of grow the experience and understand how to optimize websites more and learn more. So, I mean, I think those initial clients were more like the people that helped train me and helped me understand more. So certainly, I look back and say, okay, I'm very grateful for those experiences because, in the beginning, you obviously you're trying to research and do your best and but you're still not necessarily extremely knowledgeable. And, the more experience you gain, the more you're going to have, knowledge and know exactly what to do and how to go about optimizing, somebody's website. And our methodology and the way that our practice has evolved since then is tremendous. There's just so much more that you can offer because, it's the whole entire, conversion optimization, like that whole entire practice has evolved so much. So certainly, whatever you do has to evolve accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's cool to have the opportunity to try things, but like you said, you don't necessarily know the strategies behind it and why things are working. It's more just experimental, and it's nice to be around mentors or even clients who can invest in you learning these things because they can get they get better results if they push you in the right direction and everything. But it sounds like even from there, you were able to, like, how does this transition work then? It seems like it was pretty early in the process, maybe not in years, but in your evolution that you're like, okay, well, the search content is good, but if this content doesn't do anything, then what's the point? And so how do we optimize further downstream? So how does that revelation happen for you?
So for us, actually, I mean, I think within a couple of years after doing different projects, that's when my husband and I, or my business partner and I, started thinking about, okay, we know that there is lots of opportunity when it comes to conversion optimization, and it's definitely a market and an area that a lot of companies aren't necessarily thinking about at this time. So what can we do to improve that process overall, and where can we take kind of this to the next level? So we put together, an initial methodology. And at the time, actually, we were still in Texas, but then we decided to move to Detroit, back to Detroit, which was great for me because I had somebody to help me with the kids. My parents live in the suburbs of Detroit. And, from there we thought, let's put together a process that will help us guide kind of the visitor overall. And that's where we kind of just developed our conversion optimization methodology. And we decided, what, we know exactly what is going to, motivate the visitor to move from one step to the next, what's going to persuade them, how we're going to get them to that final point. And so that's essentially, what we decided to do and how we evolved the practice, and it became more focused and very niche, concerning kind of conversion optimization. I think initially we were trying to do a little bit of everything, and then we decided to be very focused on just CRO.
Yeah. Okay. So that's cool. So it is a few years in the making, but it's really where, when you start to turn it into a business, that's the focus that you get to. And was getting clients easy? Was it the same clients that you just evolved with, that you were working with, or did you start to? I know you said that word of mouth helped you spread around, and how did that process work around getting people to see you as this expert? How did you position your expertise and find people who were looking for this, especially pretty early in the process? Because I remember, trying to sell conversion optimization around the time that you were doing this was a lot harder then than it is now. It's still not the easiest thing, but it was a lot harder back then.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still kind of like a challenge to it, but definitely there's a lot more awareness of the importance of conversion optimization at this time. So it's not as difficult as it used to be, but it is. It's still challenging to get customers. That, always remains to be, for any entrepreneur, just one of the most difficult things is, how do you build the practice? But you have to do kind of multiple different things. I was actually recently reading that book Traction, about how you have to, a lot of times when it comes to kind of just marketing your business, you have to think of all the different traction areas, or all of the different types of or ways that you can get visitors to come and know more about your service. And sometimes even you're going to be following channels that you don't necessarily even think are going to bring visitors to your site and to understand more about your business. But for us, we did conferences at the time. The SES was really, popular. Internet Retailer was popular. So we made sure we were present in all of those conferences and speaking at them and making sure we're exhibiting at them, because we wanted to get our name out there as much as possible. In 2010, we also wrote our best-selling book on conversion optimization, which was great because that also really helped us, gain that authority within the industry and gave us kind of that name within the industry. So that helped a lot to get a lot of our business. But really, when it comes to, if it comes to giving advice to anybody about getting customers, you've got to seek different ways, whether it's, guest posts, or whether it's, through AdWords, or whether it's through, going to these shows, or going to conferences, or, trying to get, mentions, or And you have to look at all these different strategies and try different ones to see what really works for your, company in order for you to kind of move the needle and get those, customers to come, because really that is the most challenging. You can have like the best product and the best service in the world, but if nobody comes, then you know what? It's just useless. Nobody's going to really know about it. So that remains to be always a challenge, and you have to try different things. We also built our blog, which helps also give us kind of that credibility and authority within the industry. So that helped also get more visitors to come and know more about us. Somebody would read a post and they would come and visit our website and learn more about our service.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, like you said, it's a multifaceted process to get people to know or to care about what you have to say, and nothing's really a magic bullet. It's trying several things to see what sticks, right? And what you like to do too, right? It's not just what is effective for other people, it's what you enjoy doing, and then also where can you reach the most people for your efforts. It's curious, it's interesting about writing a book. I mean, it sounds like that was a pretty big point in the process as well, to get that credibility that goes along with writing a book and just getting it out there and having a bestseller. Was writing a book, I'm guessing it is very difficult, but how does that process work for you? Was it worthwhile to do that?
It is worthwhile, but I will definitely, say that it's not easy, because, you have to sit, you have to bunker down. You have to really, do a lot of research, and how it is whenever you're writing anything. Even sometimes it could come to writing a blog. It's challenging sometimes just because you got, writer's block and you're not able to think of like a really good, catchy way to capture your readers. So, I mean, certainly there's a challenge to it, but that really it did help us so much. Like it was an amazing opportunity, and we published our book with O'Reilly, which they're also leaders within the publication kind of industry. So it was just a really great opportunity for us, and it really opened a lot of doors.
Excellent. And so, speaking of opening doors, I mean, and so all of this, was it your company the entire time? Did you ever work for anybody during this process, or was it sort of like freelancer into creating a consulting company? How does that process work? Yeah,
at least for myself, it was just from freelancer to starting our own company. And I did the freelancing thing for maybe like about a year and a half until we decided, you know what, this really makes sense and there's something there. Actually, my husband didn't leave his paying job until probably, I want to say 2008 or 2009 or beginning of 2009 when he actually left, and that's when he was doing Invesp full time. But otherwise, before, we were still, I mean, because you have a family, you have like, this is not like something easy where you're just like, okay, I'm going to step away. But even when he took that leap, we were just really like scared, because you don't know if things are going to pan out, how it's going to be, even though we were already a few years into it and we had some clients. But these types of things, when it comes to, having your own business and being an entrepreneur, there's definitely lots of risk to it, because in the end, this is what you have, and you're putting everything into it and all of your savings into it, and you're making sure that you want this to be that source for you, and you want it to grow in a certain way. So whenever you have a family and that's all you're relying on, it could be a little bit scary, but I'm glad definitely that we did it, and we never looked back.
Yeah, for sure. I would say it's probably more than a little bit scary too. I mean, there's a lot to consider, and especially when both incomes sort of go into the same area. But it's nice that you were able to test the waters and to start to build the traction while one had a steady job, and then sort of make the switch over, because I think that might ease things a little bit. But as you said, you almost make it sound easy, but it's definitely not easy to build a business, especially a business that's successful and has been around for quite some time.
Yeah, no, and we had so much opposition from family, as you can imagine. Everybody was just like, "Are you guys insane? Like, this is just crazy." And but that's the life of the entrepreneur, right? You just have to take risk. You have to, if you believe in something, you're passionate about something, and you know that this is what you want to do, then you just have to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you can, see results and you can be in an area that others, that you're providing benefit, right? So if it's one of those things where if you can provide significant benefit to your clients, then there's no reason that they'd ever want to question it, right? So it's one of the more stable areas to focus in. If you can, I'm looking at your profile. It's like you've delivered over 300 projects that have had a 65% average increase in conversion rate. That's pretty remarkable. So it seems like eventually the risk goes away when your results speak for themselves.
Right, absolutely. And that's exactly, I mean, once you've developed that process and kind of like the formula of what's going to work for, a certain company, then that I think that again, like, you have that recipe is made and you have to just, go for it. Even though I'm not saying that in the beginning it wasn't hard, it was certainly hard. There were like hard times for my husband and I, but we knew that this was something that we were going to grow, and it's not going to be necessarily like a light switch you turn on and off. Like that's not how entrepreneurship works. You're going to struggle a little bit until you're able to get to the point where you're making it and you're able to grow your company and you have employees and all of that.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you mentioned the methodology earlier, and then you mentioned here that once you've done work for clients, you start to understand the process and, you can start to draw upon your past success and build out a process. What was that like, and how vital was that to your business growth?
Having that process in place is extremely important. And for every client that comes, every client that comes is unique, because certainly they have their own, market, their own, customers that are coming, and you have to know those customers and you have to understand everything about them, what motivates them, what persuades them, what makes them tick, all those things. And in order to understand that, you have to really have this process down where I can do the research and understand my customers, clients. And then at the same time, we already have these best practices that we've developed, and we know what works, and we know this process is, solid. So, that starts with that market research, and then beyond that goes to, building the trust and building the engagement, understanding the different buying stages that the visitors are coming at, and then dealing with the different fears, uncertainties, and doubts they may have. And then, of course, testing all of that against, specific hypotheses that you put in place. This specific methodology has really helped us move our customers and get them to that 65% increase in conversion rates. It seems like it's very difficult, but this is like a 65% conversion rate over time. It's not necessarily something that you're going to see, every test you're getting 200% increase. No, not necessarily. But at the same time, if we're able to see those consistent results for our clients, and every test that we launch for them, you're getting like a 7, 10%, 15% increase, we know that we've understood the visitor, they've understood their customer more, and as a result, we're able to consistently deliver results for them. But whenever you're thinking about this process, really, like I said, every customer is different. Every client that comes to your door is different, and you have to build the process for them. And it's almost like we've said now, it's not like even a CRO strategy that I would necessarily say. It's more of really like a business strategy around the website. So we put together something called the conversion roadmap, and that tells them at any point in time, what we're going to be testing and why. And it's really thinking about every aspect of that, the customer journey for them, for their customers, and understanding, the analytics behind, and also we do lots of qualitative analysis. We put all that together and put to this roadmap that's almost like a business process for their website, which really is beneficial to them and helps helps us streamline the process, the conversion optimization process.
Yeah, isn't that funny how things work out? And that is, and it sounds like for you as well, but you get started being pulled in at one very specific level, we need SEO, or we need to increase our conversion rate, and it's very mission driven. But then once you peel back and the more experience you get, you realize that no matter what you call what we're doing here, ultimately you're providing somebody with a big M marketing strategy, like capital M marketing. Like you need a marketing strategy. You need to map out where these things come into play, what your touch points are. Basically, you need to map everything out. Otherwise, you're going to have holes in your funnel process or in your conversion process. So it's sort of funny how that all comes back together, right? And that is essentially everybody needs a marketing strategy. So yes, no two clients are going to be the same because no two marketing strategies are the same because of the different inputs, the variables, the brands that we're working with. And so it's what keeps things interesting, I'd say, is that it's not just, cookie cutter. Oh, if we test button color, we're going to get higher conversions. It's basically saying, if we give you a solid marketing strategy that touches on all the different touch points and we map this thing out around the user, then we're going to get more users interested in what we have to say.
Exactly. And I think, you said it a lot more eloquently than I did. But yeah, that, again, they're not the same. And you have to make sure that you think about kind of like almost like every client that comes to you has like a story that they need to tell on their website. And you need to make sure that the visitors understand that story and you're able to give them the value that they're looking for. And that's not, like you said, it's not about the change of a color. It's not about just certain messaging that you include on the website. It's not about, all these things that are always the go-tos that maybe some CRO experts may think are the best way, but it's about that story and understanding, exactly what makes this, website unique and how you're going to be able to give that impression to all of the visitors that are coming to the website.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like research has to be really important to this then, right? It's both market research, but then research of the people who have already bought from you. I'd assume that's pretty important. And is your methodology, it sounds like it covers a lot of that, or you've basically mapped out like, here's where we need to get to, here's the information we need to uncover in order to make the rest of this work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that we do with any of our clients is we do market research. Understand. So first we give them actually the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about their market, because that's also important to understand it from their perspective. But then we do our own research to try to understand more about the visitors. We run a lot of, qualitative polls and surveys and user testing to kind of understand more about the visitor and what's motivating them and what's moving them forward through the process, what's stopping them from moving forward. And we try to put together these profiles. A lot of times those profiles may evolve into a persona, but what we initially do, for our clients is at least put some profiles together to understand a little bit more about the market segmentation. And then we also do a lot of competitive research as well, because it's important to know who the competitors are and what their positioning is within the market. So we do a lot of research when it comes to that. We do a whole competitive analysis just to understand more about, again, what's the space that they're operating in, and what are the different customers, what are the options out there for them in order for us to really cater the messaging on the website and that value proposition to be very unique to our specific client.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, as I think about this, is the amount of upfront work that goes into this, is it basically the more you do, the better the results? Or is there sort of like an 80-20 effect that takes place where 20% of the things that your clients could be doing end up pushing the 80% of the results or get them very far, and you just need to sort of figure out what those things are?
I think for a lot of the clients, it's actually more of like the 80-20. They're doing a lot of things right, and you just have to try to tap into them. So we actually had a client, they have a really great rewards and loyalty program, but it was just the way that their loyalty program, for example, was basically there was like inconsistencies throughout the website about this loyalty program. So it was a great thing that they had going on their website. However, they were just not able to translate it into anything meaningful to their customers, to the extent that only, I think, like 7% of their customers even knew about this loyalty program. And it was an excellent program which provided amazing benefits and incentives. However, it was just not very well structured and very well communicated to the visitor. And that's where, when you come in, you tap into those things, you understand that there is kind of like these missing points and these missing areas, and you just need to really highlight that. Or we had another a customer where they have this great, their value is amazing in that they have artistic products that are very unique to their own website, and they're their own artists, and they're producing these amazing products. However, again, there's just not, the visitors don't understand this value. They don't see it. They get to the website, they don't understand it. So it's just, you're doing this and you have these amazing things and you have these amazing products and you're offering these different things, but you're just not able to communicate that effectively to your visitors, and they're really not understanding it. And this is the research, based on analytics, based on, the qualitative research we've conducted, based on seeing, what's out there. We see that they're not understanding this value, and that's where we're going to come in and really highlight that for you, because that's what's going to make your website unique and get, the visitors to actually be more engaged and so on.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think that a lot of companies get trapped in knowing so much about their product or their service that they can't really disseminate it down to think about the person who's buying it. And so sometimes just having a third party to look at it from a new perspective, or to breathe new life into that object, or to the observations, is really an important thing to do. And then also to have the resourcefulness to be able to get changes in place. I think that's got to be a complicated piece about what you do. Is, some of it's just writing better copy, so it's writing, better, using more persuasive copy on the site. Sometimes it's graphics, sometimes it's changing everything. And so you almost have to be like a diplomatic person to say, hey, this is what the feedback is telling us, is that this is not on the right path. I know that you've put a lot of time into this website, but if you just do these things, it's going to give us a better impact. And that's going to be really tough to convince somebody, to tell them that their baby is ugly, for example.
Right, exactly. I mean, sometimes you have those hippos in the room that don't want to take it and don't want to listen to anything that you have to say. And, funny enough, sometimes you'll even produce the results and be like, hey, this is what the data is telling us. And they're like, no, even though we see 30% increase, but you know what, we still like our ugly design. Or like, we really, we still want to go in this path or have this type of process going on our website. And it's really difficult sometimes to convince those people, even after the data is really like right there, like screaming in their faces. So, that's the struggle of consulting, honestly. It's always that back and forth with the clients and trying to convince them and showing them the best way. But I think when you have developed that process and you understand already and you've done the research and you've already you have everything to make that argument a lot more, and it'll make a lot more sense to your client, then you're going to be able to win them over. Not always, and we've definitely had those situations where they just aren't convinced, and you can't do anything about it. You're just like, okay. I've done what I could do, and I've told you that this is what we think is going to be best based on the research that we've done. All of the we do like lots of video recording, watching. We do lots of heat map analysis. We do lots of analytics assessments, really to kind of just pinpoint where are the areas and what is happening on the website and why the visitors aren't continuing on. So sometimes we'll come up with solutions that are not always the most trendy solutions, at least in the visitors' eyes. They're like, oh, when it comes to either e-commerce or like just website design, this isn't the best way to go about it. This isn't the best process. But, what we'll tell them is a lot of times your visitors are unique, and this is what, based on our research and what we're seeing and the different trends and the different, issues that they're having throughout, we know that this is going to provide them with the solution that they need. So, it's sometimes you just have to make that kind of push. You might get resistance, but you say in the end, we're going to test it. We'll see. We'll test and see if this is going to be something that's going to be meaningful in the end. And when it does produce the results, then you have to deal with the whole other thing of, actually convincing them that, okay, we got the results, let's implement it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, most of our clients are like I said, really amazing to work with. And, once you give them the research and the concept behind what you're going to be testing and why you're going to be testing it, they'll move forward with it.
Yep. Yeah. And I'd assume that it over time, as the marketplace gets more educated with the value of conversion optimization, and there's more thought leaders out there, there's more resources, and then the people who are making these decisions are becoming slowly but surely more digital natives in the leadership roles. They can start to make these decisions, and they have the power and the trust to. Because I think that even when I tried to sell this into organizations 10 years ago, a lot of people were really skeptical because digital just wasn't a big piece of their overall pie. And so that was something that it seems like it's been changing over time. And I know that you lost me, so I'll start us off with another question in just a second here.
Yeah, sure.
And the other thing that's really interesting to me is that it seems like this type of career, like I always like to say analytics is a 50-year career, because 50 years from now, I can see people trying to make sense of the data and to try to turn it into some narrative or piecing together the story of the people who came to your website or healthcare, whatever we're analyzing. Analytics will be there. But it seems like conversion optimization is probably a 10,000 year career when you think about it, because basically it's uncovering what persuades people to buy and putting together a strategy to get people to do more of that, to buy more.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I think that it's something that's always going to be there. It might not be in the same, kind of like mediums and channels that we currently use it with. I think that obviously that's evolving and changing, and the way that visitors are buying is changing. I mean, who knew when we started out that mobile's going to be kind of like the more primary, source of CRO, that's most of our optimization efforts now go into, mobile optimization and app optimization, because obviously that is the way that visitors are getting to these websites now. I mean, some of our customers, they're getting like 70-80% of their clients through these devices, whereas previously that was not even on the radar. So I think that it's obviously evolving and changing so much, and there's going to continue to be these shifts, but it's always going to be there, needing kind of to see, and the more digital we become, the more, whether it's analytics or whether it's a CRO, they're going to be there. And it's going to be something that we're just going to have to learn and understand always in order to help these visitors navigate and convert at higher rates.
Yeah. And I think that the skills that are necessary are the right skills that anybody should be crafting as well. And that is the ability to make sense of these things and to really be just smarter with how we look at what we're doing and looking at the information that's available. It's really a much smarter approach than just, say that Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 was just all about having a presence. Now it's like, how do we get smarter about our presence? And so I think that's going to prevail as we go forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Personalization and, all this talk of, artificial intelligence, even when it comes to CRO and those experiences, I believe that they're going to be impacted a lot by kind of just the innovation and the, the different trends that are happening.
Yeah. Great. So as you go through this and, do CRO and just get really strong with your agency or your consultancy and work on it, it looks like you've maybe got the entrepreneurial itch again and are doing something else as well. So explain what you're doing with your other company.
So we love consulting. We love working with clients. But of course, as you know, Jeff, it's not necessarily the most scalable business as well. So certainly it's something that we love doing and I think we'll continue always to do. But at the same time, we know that having and being in the industry for so long and utilizing so many different tools, we found that there are areas also of opportunity there, that where we can develop something that is unique and that can provide that overall, CRO growth hacking experience that's kind of somewhat automated. Well, not somewhat, actually. I mean, it's probably fully automated, and that's really like where we want to go. It's like, how do we take the process that we've created and make it more of something that anybody who's actually even starting a practice or an agency or just a regular entrepreneur that has a business that wants to grow that business but can't necessarily afford consulting service, that can use this process within a SaaS product, and it just lays it out for the visitors so they go into the product and they're able to run different qualitative polls, look at heat map and video recording data. So you're getting also that experience of understanding all of the different areas that of your website and doing kind of like that initial research, and then from there doing some sort of like kind of an analysis of your website. We've provided certain areas that we know are that you should look for, and so you kind of do an evaluation. We call it kind of panorama. And then from there you actually take those concepts and ideas and you test them. So it's really that full process, and that's what we've laid out in our tool. So we launched the tool in private beta like a couple of months ago, and we're really excited about it, and I think it's going to be an awesome tool that lots of people that are starting out with a practice could utilize, and it'll really help them at least streamline to a certain extent the CRO process for them and for whatever clients they're working with, or for their websites if they're just using it personally.
Great. And it's called FigPie? FigPie, okay. Yeah, I'm on the website right now as well.
So PI initially was plan, implement, improve. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like, something that we had utilized early on, that, you first you plan, obviously, for any CRO project, then you implement it, and then you improve upon, based on the results, you improve upon it. It's like kind of an iterative process. So we named our product actually FigPie, because again, like it sounds like pie, like PIE, or pronounced. It should be pronounced, even though we don't always get the pronunciation that we want. but it works.
Nice. I was curious because in the analytics world, PII is personally identifiable information, but obviously I don't think that has anything to do with it. So I like it. I'm on your site right now, and I'm going to sign up and take a look at it. And I think it could help me with some of my stuff, actually. So very cool.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Definitely give us your feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll link to it in our show notes as well, just so that others who are listening and interested in this can check it out and learn more as well.
Okay, great. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So this is really, really interesting to me. I've talked to a few conversion optimization folks, and every time I'm actually more excited than ever about the world of conversion optimization, and it's coming close to home for me too, because I'm working on selling things online, and the more that you learn, the more you realize that it's not magic. It's just doing your homework and not being afraid, or not being afraid to try things, but then also not being so confident in what you have that you think that nothing else can be improved on it. So it's very methodical, the process you go through, and a lot of it's just learning and just doing it, right? Learning by doing, learning and doing. All those things are very important.
Right, absolutely. And I think in general, like you said, a lot of times you think, okay, well, I've improved this to the max. But clearly, if you're only getting like, 5% conversion rate, or you're getting, visitors going from one page to the next, like, you're only getting 20% of visitors that are actually moving from one step to the next, there's obviously room for improvement there. So, there's something more that you can add to it. There's something more that you can do. There's something more based on what you know about your visitors that you can create so that they can be more engaged. And I think after doing CRO for so long, what I found now that's extremely critical for a lot of different websites, especially if you're like a kind of like a smaller website and you don't have kind of that brand recognition, is really trying to create that loyalty around your website and creating those brand ambassadors. And that doesn't happen so easily. And that's, that's something that you have to really work on in terms of getting that engagement, incorporating more, user generated content, which a lot of websites aren't necessarily thinking about, creating that community around their website. But I'm finding more and more from my experience that it's so critical to have those really loyal customers and those brand ambassadors around your website in order for you to move the needle even further, because the market space is always getting more crowded and it's getting more difficult to engage people. So in order for you to continue to have that engagement, you have to move things and do things a little bit differently than you were doing them before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're right. It's all about, being, a lot of it comes down to having a brand that can stand out. I think there's a awesome quote about brands from Eric Schmidt at Google, and he was basically saying that brands are how you sort through the cesspool of the internet. Or, I think I'm paraphrasing it. It's not the exact quote. I'll put the quote in the show notes, but that's sort of how it comes down to, is that you either need to get people to trust you, or you need, if you don't have people who trust you, that's probably the first thing you need to do. No A/B test is going to save you from that. But once you get to that point, then it's all about just continuing to capitalize on that and to really speak to the people who have grown and learned to trust you. And then while you're doing it, trying to get more out of that group as well, right? So if you can get to that point where people trust you and they care what you have to say, then the tests and experimenting and making changes are going to have a huge impact, an even bigger impact than just doing it without that brand in place.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's extremely important to make sure that you have that brand and that name recognition, and of course, like you said, enhance that trust. Whenever we look at a client website, that's generally like the first thing that we do. We do kind of what's called like a heuristic evaluation of the website. So we do like kind of like a walkthrough of the website and look at areas that aren't necessarily only testable, but also just things that they just have to fix on their website. And one of the first things that we evaluate when we're doing that is looking at, how much do they have kind of like this trust factors on their website, and how much is that impacting the visitor. And we run polls specifically about also that, to understand more about, from the visitor's perspective, how much do they trust this brand, and what kind of concerns do they have, and all this stuff. So that's extremely important to any company. So
absolutely. So you've given a lot of really cool resources. Is there any advice that you give to people who are looking to jump into conversion optimization, or at least learn more?
I think in general, like from my experience at least, you don't necessarily have to be, like somebody who has so much CRO knowledge to actually pursue this path. So, somebody who was, originally kind of somebody who was an educator, and then I kind of shifted so much into this path. It's so that I would say, always that it's more about, if you love what you're doing. That's what it comes down to. You have to love it. You have to research a lot, read a lot. You have to always stay on the cutting edge. You can't just rely on things that you've done and then just be like, okay, that's it. I know everything that I have to know about CRO. I think you have to always be reading, always be learning in order for you to grow yourself. So you have to invest a lot in yourself in order to be able to produce something meaningful to a client or somebody that you're working with in order, within for CRO.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would say first and foremost, invest in yourself, learn as much as you can, and then rely on lots of word of mouth and go to some of these industry events because that's how you get to know people within the industry, and a lot of times that helps because people will talk about other people and they will spread the word about who you are and what you're offering.
Yeah, I really like that, what you're talking about. I think that's a reminder that we all need sometimes, and that is everybody has to start somewhere, right? And no matter how mystifying something is, a lot of it's just effort and time that you need. Like I was just thinking, and you can tell me if I'm right or not, but I think 5 minutes of time from somebody who's been doing this for 10 years may not get as good of results as you spending 50 hours of your own time figuring something out. Like, I think it's one of the industries where if you put enough time into this and you discover a brand and you discover what everybody's, the motivations behind why something's not converting, or you just understand something, you can make a big impact on your first project. You just need to put the effort in and the time into it.
Exactly. And that's what, when it comes to anything and when it comes to the entrepreneurship world in general, it's always about that effort, that you're putting. And if you're putting enough effort and you're putting enough investment into something, you're going to be able to make something great. But when you're thinking, okay, I'm just going to wing it and I'm not going to really, put a lot of hours, it just doesn't work. I mean, talk to anybody that has had a successful business. They've invested so much. They're like, whenever you talk about their work hours, it's like, these crazy amount of hours and, they're not sleeping that's the reality, because in order for you to grow something, you just have to put a lot of effort into it. And honestly, from my perspective, it's been like, that is when we're especially starting this new business and even, starting our first business, like, it's challenging because you have I have my, business that I'm, investing so much in. Obviously, I'm, married to my business partner and I have children. And sometimes it's so overwhelming because you just feel like there's no time. And I'm actually even right now thinking about going back to school just because even though I have a lot of experience, but I just think that I still want to invest in myself more. So I want to go for an MBA, and I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to do it with with my kids and like my businesses, and I don't know what. So, but I'm really like thinking about doing it, actually taking the GMAT. So we'll see how that works.
Wow. I mean, I think that's a great testament to never stop learning, right? Because no matter how good you can get in one area, there's a lot that goes into being a rounded person and then also a rounded entrepreneur, because, being a well-rounded person is one thing, but then being a well-rounded entrepreneur and accountable for people, salaries and employees and everything, that takes a lot. And so, you never really can stop learning. I'm not going back for my MBA myself, but I actually just have bought 2 online courses actually, and I'm taking them because I need to learn some areas that I don't think I'm efficient in. And so I agree with what you're saying, is that you can never really stop learning. Now, sometimes you can just run out of time, but you can never, you can't really run out of capacity to learn, because this industry just changes so often, and it changes. And then also you just need to get perspectives on how things should work and how things can work.
Right. Absolutely. No, you always have to, put a lot of effort and invest in yourself as much as possible. So So, I mean, that's what I hope to always do. And I hope to always be learning and growing and taking courses and understanding more about, user persuasion and the customer. I think that there's so much value in constantly, like you said, taking courses or learning or taking, I guess, I don't know if like the MBA is a little bit extreme, but yeah, there are still ways to kind of just, to grow always and to put that effort. So
Absolutely. Never stop learning and never stop, being hungry for more too. So
absolutely. And then,
excellent.
maybe like your path, that's the thing, like, at least for me, I have ambitions beyond what I'm doing right now. Okay, I have these two businesses and I love them and I want to grow them and I want to get them to a certain level. But then beyond that, there's more that I want to pursue. And that's, of course, like also what I keep in mind of what I want to do and why I'm, taking this path and why I'm always learning and growing, because there's more to what I want to offer.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is the key to success, right? Is no matter how successful things have become or how far you've gotten in one area, there's always more. And it's tempering. It's really the hard part is balancing ambition versus being in the now, right? And it's like, how do you stay happy with now, yet have the ambition to go and do things? And that's a balance. And you have a family, husband, everybody, that you're working with, and how do you do it all? That's something that it takes time and it takes a lot of thought to figure that out.
Exactly. I mean, and you have to have a really good support system. So that's always helpful to have people around that are supportive and that are going to be helping, to push things forward for you and help you achieve what your goals and your ambitions.
Absolutely. So I think we're running out of time. So this has been tremendous. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was really great talking to you, and anything I can do in terms of advice or help, I'm always here.
Well, that was exciting. After we finished our call, I couldn't help but tell Ayat that she was an amazing guest. She even makes me wonder if I made the right choice years ago by focusing on analytics. Maybe things would be different if I would have went the CRO route. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've probably heard me say a few times that analytics is a 50-year career. But in this podcast, I went a little bit crazy and I declared that CRO is a 10,000-year career. Now, that may be a little bit overzealous. I don't think any of us are going to be around 10,000 years from now to see if that was true or not. But I really wanted to get the point across that I am excited about the future for anybody who's focused on persuading more prospects to become more customers, really to optimize your rate of conversion. So thanks for the talk, Ayat. I'm looking forward to meeting up with you in Istanbul and sharing some wonderful Turkish food. For show notes, visit jeffalytics.com/Ayat.